Hi everyone, Peter here with another tutorial. This time it's featuring the Sony Handy-Cam in the multimedia department. This time I'll be going over the camera, turning it on, setting it up, getting it ready for connecting to the computer, and importing it in 3 of the major NLEs. So let's start off by turning it on. So we're going to go to the top switch, just flick that, and it's going to come on. And then after that, we're going to flick it open. And we're going to allow it to automatically just pop in our tape, making sure that the red side is down and that the spools are properly pointed in their corresponding areas, and just letting that click in, automatically go back in and close, and then just close the hatch and let the tape get recognized. Next up, we're just going to be making sure that we're shooting to the proper format. These cameras have both the capability to shoot to HDV and DV, but for our purposes, we're going to be shooting to HDV, which shoots at 1440 by 1080 at 60i. Here we have the option, just to make sure that this is selected before you go to shoot. Next up, we're going to take a look at some of the manual controls you're going to take note of when you're going out and shooting. First up, we're going to take a look at exposure. So there, we're going to go into that and set that to manual. By setting that to manual, you'll have much finer control over the brightness at any given scene and what you're exposing. Next, we're going to take a look at white balance. White balance controls the color temperature and what the sensor perceives as white. There are a couple presets, but generally you're going to be wanting to use one push. One push allows you to tell the sensor what you consider white in the frame. You're going to hold down this button and make sure something white you know is white is in front of it, and you'll be correcting it. Also, you'll be able to control shutter speed. And while you can set this to manual, I don't suggest you messing around with this too much, as it can lead to some complications. So, when we're getting ready to connect the computer and the camera together, we're going to want to go in and use the same button we used to turn it on to change settings from the record to play/edit. Also, this is the cable you're going to want to be using when you're connecting the camera to computer. It's a Firewire 800 cable. Here's the camera connected to the computer. And right now I just want to make sure that the I-link conversion is not down converting our HDV to DV. That can lead to a lot of complications, and we definitely want to avoid flicking that on. Also, before we start capturing, just as a precaution, we just want to make sure the tape is rewound so we know that we're capturing from the very beginning. Let's take a look how we're going to handle importing this footage using Premiere Pro CS 5.5. So we're going to start off by creating a new project, and we're going to make sure that the capture settings are set to HDV, not DV. We're going to save this project as capture test and overwrite the pre-existing one. And for our timeline settings, we're going to go to HDV and 1080 at 60i. So here we are in Premiere Pro. We're going to go up over into File, and using either the keyboard shortcut or going through here, we're going to open up the capture window. The capture window allows us a lot of different options for capturing our tape, and we can break it into all sorts of clips, especially when we shoot long tapes. But since we only have a small amount of footage, we don't really need to mess around with any of this stuff. We're just going to set it to capture, and when we hit escape, it'll cut the clip off, and we'll have that moved over into our project. So let's just hit this, and it'll start capturing our tape. And as soon as we decide to press escape, it'll stop the recording and allow us to exit the capture window and start editing the clip right away. So press escape, brings up the naming convention. Let's call this wall, and this is a shot of a wall. I'm feeling creative. Overwrite the pre-existing one. Over and close the capture window. And here's the clip ready to be used already in our project. You can just drag that right into our timeline and it's ready to go. Fairly straightforward process that is very similar to how it's done in both Final Cut Pro 7 and X. So let's go take a look how we're going to go do this in 7. Here we are in Final Cut Pro 7. Now let's start off by changing the audio video setup. We're just going to make sure that our sequence settings are set for HDV. We're going to make sure that our capture format is Apple ProRes 422. This will just ensure the maximum quality and it'll improve performance in editing. Our capture device we're going to set to Sony FireWire, just so that Final Cut can properly control it in the capture process. So we're going to set that, close that, and now we can go over into File and over into Log and Capture. And this window will come up asking for what we want to name our clip. Let's go with Wall again. And this window pops up, which is just a preview of what's being captured. And like Premiere Pro, Escape will allow you to cut off what you want captured. Generally, you'll want to capture the whole tape here because in this version of Log and Capture, it doesn't allow a lot of fine control. You can have more control, but with that control becomes a slightly more complicated process. So I just hit escape there as I came into the frame. My shadow. So once I hit escape, it's going to take this clip and move it into there it is, into our project. So now the clip is ready just like in Premiere. You can see it in the viewer there. It can be dragged directly into the timeline and it's ready to edit. The sequence can be automatically reset to the first clip. And there we go. It's ready to go. Now let's go take a look at how this is going to be done in X. So here we are in Final Cut Pro X. This might not be familiar to everyone, but I will be going over how events and how these different capturing tools work in a later tutorial. In the meantime, let's just go import from camera. So here's Final Cut Pro X's version of Log and Capture. Let's go back to the beginning of the tape to make sure that we have the right material and then the camera's being properly recognized by Final Cut. It's going to go back to frame 0, and we're going to go to play. And bingo, we have our wall again. So now that we know we have the right tape, let's go back to the beginning so we can begin capturing. Final Cut Pro X doesn't have a lot of the fine control that 7 and Premiere Pro does have for tape capture, so if you're going to want to capture the whole tape, you have to go back to the beginning. So now we're going to go to capture, and we're going to be given some options, including what event we want that footage to be stored in, if we want it to be converted ProRes, which we do, and a number of other smart options that Final Cut can use to collect data about clips. So now that we're going to start capturing, it's going to go from the very beginning until the end. Unfortunately, unlike Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro 7, there isn't a lot of fine control, so if you want all of your footage, you're going to capture the entire tape in its entirety. This can be a hassle with larger tapes, but since we only shot 30 seconds, this is going to go by pretty fast. Once it's done capturing, the clip is going to be put into the correct event, and any transcoding that needs to be done will take place. Almost there. There's my shadow. And now that it's done capturing, I can close this window. And we can see that our clip is immediately placed into the event, ready to be taken into the primary storyline for editing. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and that it helps take some of the headaches out of shooting to mini DV tapes and importing to your NLE of choice.